we had a funeral with my family folk who didn't know about me. My mother's sister lived right there in New Orleans, and the children didn't know that my mother was their aunt. So I brought up the pictures and talking about a family reunion at the funeral. I brought all these pictures.
You have some beautiful pictures.
And I said, now, this is your grandmother, this is your uncle. They did not know.
Because they got, see, I'm
So
glad you bring
family
it up.
reunions.
Now you're finna make me come back on something else.
Yeah.
Well, they tried to destroy me, my reputation around here, but it didn't work because they went at me as SCLC, what I supposed to didn't do nothing over there but get help. Indian, I'm fake, and I'm glad you brought that up. And this year we're gonna stop at the museum. I want you to know that. I'm working on coming up to Mountville, like I told you. We're gonna bring a group over to your museum.
Okay, we'd love that.
We haven't done that in a while, so we need to bring a group to the museum to see the pictures and walk through the history that you have. This man have the best collection of pictures of the movement out of the world. Noreen, you done been, it's heart touching.
When those folks saw their family,
Man,
and they didn't know. I mean, here we.
I just did a funeral Saturday.
Yeah.
Cousins from New Orleans,
Yeah.
just like you say, don't know their history and stuff like that. And then there was a few that did. But I want to go back to this while we on this topic. Y'all know I'm sitting here with Spiver, and people ask me this question all the time: am I the only civil rights leader that's got an Indian heritage? And I don't know if people thought I always hid my heritage or what. Only thing I regret, I didn't get to meet her in person. But this man's mother was what, Spiver?
That's right.
So the civil rights movement, we want to correct that. And if Miss King had not passed, I'll never get, also back in Florida, she had said, we'd had the convention right before Katrina hit.
Mm-hmm.
She had gotten me on the phone, it was me, her, and Marty, and she was supposed to be getting Malcolm X's daughter.
Mm-hmm.
She said, I want to bring different generation up who I know come from Indian heritage. When she called Malcolm red, let me just tell you what she said. She said, we get red kids. She said, Marty, she said, I don't want to be the part of what I want y'all to do. I want to introduce y'all as a generation of Indian children who survived. See, people didn't know her mom, she come from a long Indian heritage.
Right.
They didn't know, people think I be joking, but I was around Miss Rosa Parks. They don't understand in SCLC, y'all had the younger one of us. We looked out for the older people in the movement, like Miss Carr and then Miss Rosa Parks. I had the honors to walk with them to the bathroom, make sure they get there and get back to their table, make sure that they got whatever they need. They didn't have to move. Those were mothers of the movement. And then they had a set of women in SCLC. We all call them the women of elegance. You know what I'm talking about? I mean, you want to learn how to be a classy woman, the women of elegance had dress. Mm-hmm. And I had an honor to be with these type. But the thing that people fail to realize, Rosa Parks, American Indian. Spiver is American Indian. Andy Young, American Indian. Now, like Andy said, I got some Italian in there too. He always tell that joke. I got that Italian in there from New Orleans, from the Sevenmore. But Andy Young's dad is from right here in Bayou Lacombe. Part of this tribe, my cousin, my grandmother was, my great-grandmother was a Young on my grandfather's side. The grandfather that raised me. But what people fail to realize, Indians were marching. Reverend Orange, he made me take pictures with him so many times at the convention. He said, well, you got to be all of our chief because we don't know where our chief's at. That's a piece of history stolen from people. And Reverend Orange, American Indian mix. Judge Mathis, who sit on the board, he walk up to me, Chief, we're going to have to adopt you as all our chief. I'm Indian from Florida. Dr. Lafayette. Mm-hmm. You understand? The list of Indians that have fought for civil rights, Reverend Alexander, is actually from over there in Terrebonne Parish, American Indian. Spiver, I tell people, sometimes the word African American messed us up, and I'm going to tell you, I remember when we met with Jesse, Reverend Alexander and all this, we met at Landmark Hotel. You know, we used to meet over there in Kenner, at Landmark Hotel. I can tell you where it happened. Jesse was running for office. I want to say this because people may not know where certain things come from. Jesse was running for office, and he came here and held a meeting in Louisiana. He went to the universities, and we had a meeting there at Landmark Hotel, and Jesse brought up the issue about African American. And Jesse's still living. And it was a breakfast meeting. And I remember telling him, if I come back to Bonfaka and tell my people that Jesse Jackson want them to be an African American, I said, you crazy? Them people been killed me down there in Bonfaka. We also, I've been blessed to learn from the movement and learn from my Indian community, but there's some things I see we made some mistakes on. And I want to go public with that. If everything y'all fought for was on the Negro, I want y'all to hear me. Why did people want to move the fight after y'all done won the civil right, the voting right? You understand what I'm saying? Now they want to move the word Negro. Now I know Reverend Ernst say I met James Brown through Reverend Ernst. That was his good friend. Hey James, I'm like, okay, these two James talking now. Say it loud. I'm black and I'm proud. That gave pride to the black movement from what Reverend Ernst told me back then. They needed a song. And then I had a chance not to get it from TV. I got it from Reverend Ernst, and I got it from James Brown himself, who lived down there by, the state representative in Alabama. Oh man, must have been, who he gonna get mad? I can't think of his name. The black man that was the representative there in Georgia.
That's it now?
He's not there now. I think he's been out for a minute. But he was back there in the 80s and the 90s when we was doing these things. I remember his mom or somebody lived not too far from James Brown over there at Macon side. Oh man, I'll think his name later. I was ashamed to forget his name. I can see his face. But anyway, we sit there at the King Center. Reverend Ernst had a habit going to the King Center and hold his little meeting in whichever room he wanted to hold. You know, that he was like the king's son. For when it come to going to the King Center or SCLC, y'all had him spoiled too. He got spoiled from the first group. We was in there having a meeting, and James Brown said, I'm American Indian. He told me that. He said, say it loud, I'm black and I'm proud. Didn't mean I wasn't who I was. I was dealing with the blackness of time. So this man explained what he meant. He wasn't trying to create a race. Colored. We got stuff marked under colored. We got stuff marked under this. When I started working the census and stuff, I found out that our people wrote themselves away from the bills that you all had fought for. Right now, if we got to fight as African American, we can't go back to the civil right voting right bill because the language is not there. And what's bad about it, the President of the United States, President Obama, and Will, I'm just calling on you out of your audience. What did you hear when he said?
He said the laws under the United States of America, the African American hold no legal jurisdiction in the United States of America.
That hurted people to hear that come from a black president. But a white president couldn't have said that and got away with it because we all heard it. You hear what I'm saying? But people didn't hear it when it came from a black man, so I began to research. That's what we do. I'm like, you know what? I told y'all he was correct, and he is. So, leader, what we need to do before you and I leave and some more of the other leaders, we need to do something to bridge that gap. Because we don't want what y'all fought for not to make it to the next generation. Because right now, African American can be a white person if we say in creation all started on the African continent, makes all of us African American. The people Dr. King was referring to them farm owners. He was fighting for the farmers. Who are those Negro people's descendants who did not get their funding after it took all these years for them to try to right the wrong with the farmers? New people getting that money. But the descendants who done lost their land in Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana, and all those places he was talking about, still have not seen justice, leader. I know because I'm a black Indian farmer. If my grandfather was living and you heard me call myself black, he'll get mad. after James Brown said what his definition of blackness was, I have no problem being black. Because I also understand white was a category, a classification in America at a point in time. And all people who we call white today, if they do their paperwork, they wasn't classified white back then. Germans, Irish, Italians, Jews, these people fought to fall underneath the classification of white. The thing we got to get the younger generation, don't worry about being called black. Worry about what's being used against you by being black, like the black code. You understand what I'm saying? And that's what they need to understand. But there's nothing wrong with black. But the black code and the Jim Crow law is what you all were fighting. And we still living under Jim Crow and the black code. Everybody can use the civil rights bill but people of color. That's why we still fighting in the streets and protesting, it because it looks like our fighting is always a contribution to another group. Have no problem with the people moving from other countries. But we have not right the wrong with the people who Dr. King originally, and you originally got busted upside your head for to get some help for. As a leader, what could you tell the next younger generation out here that they can do to right some of this and close some of these gaps with you? You still living. You know what y'all was fighting for. Do you feel we done made it to where you wanted to see us right now for this generation? Where we're at now on your fight?
No, we got a long way to go. Got a long way to go. And I think you're absolutely right. We have failed to talk about that and get people to understand what you're talking about. And I think it's very important what you're saying so that people will know, we made mistakes, and we should be big enough to admit that.
Admit that. And the younger people can understand, we can't be so politically correct.
Yeah.
We so godly wrong.
Yeah.
Can I do it like that, leader?
That's right.
I want us to get it godly right. Because I'm not worried about who we offend, as long as we don't offend God Almighty.
That's right.
And to do that, we have to go back. Because, we didn't sit in back rooms, a lot of us, and say, should have did this way, and this should have been did that way. Well, that's with anything they don't understand the pressure of a civil rights leader, and you're trying to make the right decisions.
Right.
You're not psychic or some supernatural person that can just fix it. We was working to fix stuff to the best of our knowledge, what we had to work with. I told someone a while back, I said, yeah, I did support Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton, but nobody told me that man had took that, I had to go to Arkansas during Katrina when I realized that the flag in Arkansas was an undercover disguised Confederate flag.
They made a diamond out of that.
When they told him, he said, well, I took it down when we was fighting Montgomery about the flag years ago. Yeah, he took it down, reorganized it, and structured it pretty, and sold it to us. Then when you start reading, and this was years later, this is when Hillary was running, I started reading papers. When I got to Arkansas, I stayed there for 18 months. 18 months, you learn about people.
Good.
So a lot of people didn't get to hear the stories we all learned when we was in Arkansas. And they were like, it ain't the way you think, So we heard some horrible things, which that's not what I'm going to, because I want to stay on what I'm focusing on. But when I found out some of the bills they wrote in Arkansas imprisoned black people, the Arkansas have a structured law code that is preset what you get for what crime. All that came out of the Clinton administration. So you can't go back and appeal, you can't do nothing, and that's what filled the prisons. I didn't know in Arkansas they was encouraging the people to take their farms and shut them down and turn them into places to build prisons. Well, you just come through that road. We travel it all the time. From Louisiana to Arkansas ain't nothing but Spiver, a tourist attraction of prisons that once was farms. It's just prison after prison after prison. It looked like, if you go at night, it looked like cities. They so huge. Well, the money that Dr. King was fighting when he said the check came back marked insignificant funds, it didn't come back to them insignificant because they took their farms, turned them into prisons, and they being paid not the farm and being paid the rent they farm. Come on now.
Yeah. Welfare.
Yeah, that's what it is.
A different name.
So we need to take some tours, leader, and see these type places that is, and I like the word you use because that's what we've been using. How many of these places are using people as a commodity to create welfare for another group? The average black farmer, and I'm a USDA farmer, I know you're a farmer too. We don't get what people think we get. Just like they think Indians get a lot of stuff. Indians don't get nothing, not ones look like me and my people. But another thing, leader, and I'm going to close on this. We have not addressed the Indians in America. We cannot leave this earth and not fight for our own people. We done fought for everybody else. The focus need to be on American Indians a little bit, just a little bit. 5%, 10%, we got no percent. Why I'm saying this, the next generation of children, they land patents and all the stuff the United States agreed, saying they gave them their land for their heirs and assigns forever. Big companies from New York and Texas, developers is coming through pushing people out. We back where we were. Some of the stuff I met you fighting, I'm back fighting it again here. American Indian.
And they haven't just started that. The Indian village where my mother and my folk were born, the Corps of Engineers made a river, the Bayou, all of that area. There was a body of area beyond Plaquemine where my folk would call the Indian village. We were talking about it with my family. That this great big huge area that the Wilberts plantation people claimed they were Indians to get it.
And that's what we need to start talking about right now.
And they got the land and they sold it to the Corps of Engineers. Now it's a river.
See?
There is no more Indian village.
Well, in Oklahoma, I was told, my grandfather told me that they took our people to, because being that my grandfathers were chiefs, they used to go back there in the 1800s and they would come back and they had to go up there to do the census. They didn't do the census here. You had to make that journey all the way to Oklahoma to stay on the road. So they said when they would go, the story was passed down. Every time they go, they would see lesser and lesser of our people. And they would see more and more white people.
Yeah.
And they didn't see their people no more. So the story was passed down to me, stay out of Oklahoma. I told them as my kids come along, we ain't going to Oklahoma because Grandpa say, when an Indian go to Oklahoma, they don't come back. They come up missing.
Yeah.
So Spiver ended up getting a call in 2019. They asked me to come to Oklahoma, the black Indians. I'm like, ooh, Lord, go to Oklahoma. They gonna make me disappear. So she was like, Mama, you know the rule. We cannot go to Oklahoma. That been passed down there since the 1800s. This man called me and he started talking and telling me what was happening, and I thought about it and I say, sir, and he'll tell you this. I said, that was people like Reverend Alexander, Ted Quant, and the Spiver Garden, and the James Orange. They came seen about me. I'm closing on this with you. I said, even though I might die or disappear, I'm coming and I'm bringing my family. And you say, we going? You say you going. I said, I'm bringing my family. Spiver, I left from here, me and my husband and my daughter, and we drove to Oklahoma because of stuff that y'all did for me. I had to give it back. Y'all never did nothing looking for nothing from me. I ain't have nothing to give y'all. I remember I go to the convention, the banquet tickets would be, oh Lord, above my head. Spiver passed through. You know I ain't have nothing. You say, here, so you're ready for the banquet tonight. Nobody's business. I got my ticket and we going on in there with the little cheering we done brought. My kids appreciate that today. Now listen, I have had a chance to repay that. This man called me talking crazy and radical like I was telling y'all. They trying to kill us over here. They flooding us out. We don't have this. And under normal circumstances, people need to run from you like that because you're crazy. And I told that man on that phone, I say, sir, I live to hear myself. I made this phone call, what you making to me, years ago. And because those leaders came seeing about me, I'm able to come see about you. And I told him about y'all. I can't think her name, used to be with Dr. King. Come to find out that's where she from. Oh, what's her name? The pretty lady used to be with us. Oh, Lord, I'm going to give you her name this week. She from Oklahoma, from that area, and I didn't know that. Dr. King, good friend, the one used to ride all around, and she say she took him to the airport and all this. I can't think her name right now. Pretty lady. I found out she was from there. I met some of her people. I'm like, so y'all Indians too? They say, yeah. I'm like, well, the whole civil rights movement been ran by American Indians. And the young people don't know that.
Don't know it.
But it's time, Spiver. That's why God bless you to come to Slide Hill and bless me that you came. Because today we're going to let it be known.
Well, I told all of them,
You started already.
I said, y'all the Indians.
Thank you, Lord. Because I don't want to leave this earth with everybody thinking I'm the only Indian civil rights leader. But we Indians have fought for everybody else. Black, white, Hispanic, whoever living off civil rights and voting rights. A lot of black Indians fought that fight. If you from Africa and you here now, we opened the door. We've been fighting for a long time. But for some reason, they want to wash all our villages away. Like in Oklahoma, they dug up. They say if we go there a certain time of year, you can see the tops off the houses. Sometimes you see parts of people's body float up in the water where they took, where the Indians first went in. And they flooded it out. That's why they're trying to flood me out now. I'm not going. I'm getting some stilts or something. I don't know, but I'm not going. Mm-hmm. And I'm here to tell you I'm not going. Y'all, it's a blessing to have a person here that's a civil rights leader who's been there for years, but he's able to tell you he's also an American Indian. In Spiver, I want to give honors to our people some way, some form, some fashion, and I had talked to Reverend Orange. He asked me, but we need a meeting that Ms. King was going to do. We need to bring and ask this country, why is the black Indian still being punished? And you know I've worn my pride with being an Indian all across the country. Oh, yeah. I might be the only one in the room dressed with some feathers and stuff, but I was there. And I would be with a lot of professors who had their African attire on, and they were trying to tell me, where's your one drop black blood? And I was like this. People in Louisiana, one drop black blood, wouldn't have been able to have the paperwork and the land papers that people like me have. I'm not an African American because that started with Jesse in 87 when he was running for office for 88. And a lot of people didn't agree with it then. No. And Jesse knew that. You know that, Spiver. That's what people said, that's not going to fly. So I don't know who did it, how did it, but a bunch of professors jumped on board with it. And the scholars took it and it went off. But they have made people what they have never been. And people paperwork, I do people paperwork a lot for them in our family. I haven't found an African American yet on the birth certificates in our family. So I saw colored, I saw black, I saw mulatto. I'm serious. So where do we get African American? My people can't, they don't back their paperwork up. And when we ask an Indian to give up their identity, and they trick the politicians and the black leaders to make it look like we don't exist. And that's what Dr. King had found out. I told him this here. Dr. King say, the Negro people find themselves in exile in their own land. He did not say they brought them from Africa and put them here. He said the Negro people in their own land. Right there is one reason I think today Dr. King is dead. I'm saying this to you as a civil rights leader to a civil rights leader. Dr. King was getting ready to embark, I think, upon some stuff that they wasn't ready for. Both of the truth was coming out. But now the truth's out with internet. The kids pulling up the pictures from the archives. They can't stop it now. is out. But I still have the words of Dr. King to repeat to them. And I want them to have the words of Chief Warhorse and Spiver left back here with them so they can do like I did with Dr. King's speech. Dr. King said it. He said the check came back marked insignificant. That mean they ain't paid us yet.
Insufficient.
Insufficient. He said the Negro people find themselves in exile. You know, now what made me remember that, as a child, my grandfather kept telling me we was born in exile. And the only person I ever heard talk about exile was Dr. King in that speech. So he knew who he was. So I went to Miss King, and Marty's still living, her son. I said, Miss King, was Dr. King saying this? And I asked her before Katrina, I'm going to make a speech about what Dr. King said. I said, do you have any problem with me saying it? She said, you are not out of order. She said, he said what he said. And you remember me and Marty sit in that room and talk to his mama. We left off from y'all, and she sit there and said, we did not mean it like that. We thought when we were fighting for all of us. This is what she told me. Who would have known we had been left out ourselves? So she saw it. She said, what we're going to do is have a press conference. And I want to come out. And guess what happened, y'all? She died that next year before she could do it. So I want to close with this. Spiver, you and I, is not too late. We still living. And there's a lot of more leaders like Judge Mathis. And he's still here with us. We need to set the record straight. Because we seeing more Asian people being Indian, and we are being, actually, I agree with Jesse on this. I tell people this, taxation without representation don't feel good. So Jesse used to say that all the time, but he don't understand. When you took the Indians from their title, you took us where we pay tax with no representation. Everything I fought for, Spiver, for Indians, you know where it go? To what's called the federally recognized tribes. You know who put the federally recognized tribes together? Nixon. A reconstruction by Nixon. While the civil rights movement was, and y'all was fighting and pushing, Nixon and the room representatives used to say it was always another room. Dr. Lyra used to say that too. Mm-hmm. They said, well, we over here working for something. I heard this from Dr. Lyra and heard it from Reverend. There was another room they be in taking it back from us. Well, one of those rooms, we need to open the door and check. And we need to start asking our leaders in this country to go pull the federal recognition of the 550-some tribes in the United States. Now, I'm doing like you. I'm stepping out there right now, publicly, saying we need to ask for that. Because you didn't have the governor of Oklahoma been proven that his people paid $5 for their Indian citizenship. What they did? Hush it. But he's the governor. You got a woman sitting in Washington, Elizabeth Warren, got minorities set aside in Indian funding because she's supposed to be in the Cherokee. We ain't addressing that. But they'll come after you or me if they think we done had $2 over whatever they thought. It's time we start asking about these things. We need an investigation like they're opening everything else up. Look at Emmett Till. They killed him, but guess what? We starting to see the truth come out, huh? Chief Warhorse.
Truth crushes the earth, shall rise again.
Chief Warhorse, who y'all helped make be arrogant in the movement and fear nothing but God in the movement. I want, when you all speak as leaders, and I know how we do it, all we got to do is put it in the wind to the leaders. We need an investigation. I'm asking you this, leader. And I didn't even get you here to ask you this. This just came out, ain't I was talking. We need an investigation on how do we get the 556 federally recognized tribe under Nixon reorganization and left the other Indians like your mama and all of these people and my mama and them. How did they leave them out? We need to ask that question.
Got to raise it.
Do y'all agree with me?
Yes, indeed.
And it starts from one or two leaders. We just got through saying
right.
it. And there's an Indian leader sitting here with me, and I'm an Indian leader, and it's time we talk about it.